Here we have two Yixing teapots that most of you already know. And inside this pocket we have a silver teapot. Let's see how they compare with each other. Hi guys, this is Gabriele from nannuoshan, and today I'm here in the nannuoshan studio with Dimitri.
Hello.
So, you know that we love to share tea knowledge, and today we want to share tea knowledge in relationship with TEAWARE.
Yes, the combination of both worlds.
Definitely, that's what we are going to do. And Dimitri, you brought from home actually two of your Yixing teapots here.
Yes, yeah. Which both of which actually were from nannuoshan. Unfortunately, I guess I should say they are both sold out.
Yeah, but doesn't matter. That's not the topic of today. We're not here for selling you the Yixing teapot. It's just that we wanted to do a comparison with my silver teapot, which is here.
Your brand new, brand spanking new.
My brand new Yixing teapot. I just silver teapot. I just picked it up among those that we have on stock, and I will bring back home. And this is something I really wanted to do for a while, and since I'm here in the studio, I choose the silver teapot, so we thought, before I bring it back to Switzerland, let's have a comparison between Yixing and silver, right?
Silver, yes.
I think that's
the question that's on, in a sense, everyone's minds when they're considering, I suppose, a silver teapot or also Yixing teapot is, you know, the effect that it has.
Yes, the effect that it has on the... First of all, before I tell you about the properties and so on, and we look into it, we have here two Yixing and two teas. Because one of these you use for black.
Yes, I just started using kind of this one only recently, a few months ago, so it's not very... and I didn't season it with the tea yet, like boil it with the tea. I boiled it just with plain with water. I've used it several times.
Okay, but that's fine, yeah. And this is for black.
That one's for black, and this one for Sheng Pu'er.
For Sheng Pu'er. So we probably will do, you know, a full comparison, because you can use the same silver teapot for both teas, so we will get there in a second. So, which one do you want to start with? Let's do like this.
Which tea? Oh, good question. I mean, the black might be nice. On the other hand, the Sheng...
We will do both. So,
what temperature is the water at?
96.
Right in between the two ideal temperatures.
Let's go for one.
Okay, let's start with the black.
Black. Okay. So which is this, right? So
yes.
We bring this on the side. We bring this up. And we get started. So, 4 grams or 5? How much do you
5
have?
Of here, 4 here.
5 we put here.
Yes.
Oh,
we can remove.
Yeah, let's remove one, because that's probably my mistake. Yeah, just to have. So we remove one, and then we get started with. Yeah. Okay.
And the two teas we have here, maybe, or we can at least start with this one, is the Changtai Hao number 642 2006. One of the sort of mouthier names on stock at the moment, which we also did a video, in fact, here we used this one of the last videos.
Yeah. We already drank this together, and this is a Fengqing Honcha. That Dimitri liked a lot. He just asked if he could get some.
Yes.
And this tea is actually not available online, but if you would like to have it, you can just send an email to info@nannuoshan.org. You tell me the tea, you place an order via email, and we can sell that to you. It is 19 euros for 50 gram, and if you want 100 gram, 35. Okay, that's the price. We don't have much on stock, so we don't put it online. So we say black tea. All right. Oh, Jesus, we need more black tea because we need it for both.
I was going to ask about that, but then...
Yeah, we have to do that. So, we do a little break, we get another 4 grams of these and 4 grams of these, and then we're back with you. Alright, here we are. So, 4 grams of Fengqing, 4 grams of Fengqing. Let's pour that in. And we are really interested in making a comparison in the taste. And let's see what gets out of it. If it gets out of it.
If it gets out. Large, very long leaves.
Okay.
I don't want to...
Let's shake it like that.
Yeah, get it everywhere a little bit, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, I would say without further ado, we go ahead, warm up the teapot briefly. 1 and 2. Maybe just to avoid any mistake, we do like these. Yes. I do first. You go. So that we have more or less the same time. Feng Qing is so extremely aromatic, and we choose this intentionally because with a very aromatic tea, you are more able to tell differences out.
It's really one of, I think, one of the first, when I first started with nannuoshan, one of the ones that first caught my attention because it's so, I mean, I would describe it as, well, we always describe it as roses. Oops. There's the topic comes up a little bit before we get into the instance. It's so aromatic of, are we talking about of roses or also red fruit, if you will? Is this really dominant? I mean, you open the bag and it's just this perfume comes over.
Yes.
And it's a bit unusual. It's this black tea that comes, large leaf black tea, no golden downy tips, but I suppose it's from because it's perhaps from larger leaves, but kind of really refined in its way. And it comes from is it from the Feng Qing factory mostly, or just the town?
No, it's not from the factory. It is from the Feng Qing area, yeah.
Or the Dianhong.
The town
Okay,
Feng Qing, yeah, in the north of Linzang. So let's brew it a little bit shortly. You have already seen one difference, that I could keep my finger on the top of the teapot, of the Yixing one, after the first brew, but not on the top of the silver pot, which was too hot.
Wait.
Yeah, you can go. It was more or less these.
Pretty close in timing. Okay, interesting.
So,
and should we note already some of the slight differences between the two pots?
yeah, let's have a look at the color. Fairly similar. We didn't say, but also the quantity, the capacity is similar. 120, 130 milliliters. We are really about there between these two.
Pretty close.
Color is similar. Dimitri, we need also cups. Maybe.
You also need some cups.
Yeah, so you can get the nannuoshan cups, and with that I'll start giving you some information about the properties. So we said on one side we have the silver teapot, and on the other side we have the Yixing teapot. So let's look first of all at the thermal conductivity of the material. This is how good it is conducted through the material. In the case of silver, which is one of the most, if not the most conductive, thermally conductive material in the world, it has a conductivity of about 430 watt per meter Kelvin. Now, doesn't matter if you don't know exactly how that works, just remember 430. In the case of Yixing, it's not a pure material, so it's a little bit more difficult to make an estimate, but I would say with a lot of confidence that this material has a conductivity between 0.5 and 5 watt per meter Kelvin. So you see that there is a huge difference in the value. Thank you. Here we go. And so we do like these on this side. We do a wash. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know.
Just to be.
So let's give just a brief. Okay.
To warm them up for better appreciation as well.
Sure. So here we are. Another important property to compare is actually the thermal capacity. The thermal capacity is the ability of a material to keep heat. Let's put it this way. So it's also the ability of a material to retain heat.
So it's essentially how much heat can fit in a given amount of material. So
it's kind of, you know, how much heat do you have to give to the pot, to a material, to raise its temperature, let's say by 10 degrees or 100 degrees. Some material needs more heat to bring up the temperature, and other less. And now if a material needs a lot of heat to bring up the temperature, then it will need also a lot of time to release that heat, so to lower the temperature. So in this case we have, well, let's start with the silver and with the thermal capacity of the silver. The thermal capacity of the silver is about 230, okay, and is measured in joule per kilogram Kelvin.
Okay, joules per kilogram Kelvin.
In the case of the Yixing Teapot, it's also a little bit more difficult to make an estimate, but it is about 880, so it's much higher.
Okay.
That's why usually you say that clay retains better
the heat,
better. Yeah. So there is another property that I want to tell you about, but first of all, we want to try the tea.
Right.
So I put in the left one.
They also
Wait, on your left one is the silver, right? Because it's on the side of the silver, so that we don't mix up things. And let's see, just a first brew to see if there is any difference. And I want now to touch again.
Okay.
Yeah, that's still hotter. You can try.
So I want to give it a little. See if the notes come out.
Oh, it's so good, Fenchin. I love this thing.
Silver first.
There is a really difference to me.
Yeah. I mean, here I would describe it as a little bit sort of sweeter, a little bit more viscous.
In which one?
The clay one.
The clay more viscous.
The clay one.
And here I find it clearer in taste.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
in the silver though. You not? You find it clearer here?
Also, even the aroma here, if just on the lid, is a little bit lighter, a little bit more kind of refined.
Yeah, okay, refined is the fine word. So here it's the mouthfeel is a bit better if you want. That what you meant with viscous, thick a little bit. And here those parfum notes that you mentioned before, to me are clearer here.
They are, yeah. Swallowed a little bit down the
No
wrong
worry. While you take care of that, I'll tell you about one other property. And the other property is thermal emissivity. What does it mean, thermal emissivity? Thermal emissivity is the ability of a material that is hotter than its environment to radiate energy. Okay? You have three ways of transfer thermal heat. You have conduction.
by direct touching.
By direct touching through the material. Then you have convection. For example, the air is moving around and is convecting it out of the teapot. And you have radiation. Radiation is the same reason why you get the suntan, because of radiation from the sun.
Or when you can feel like a fire from a distance.
Exactly, or a fire from a distance, right? So it is the heat that it radiates. And not everybody radiates in the same way. In the case of, well, let's start again with the silver teapot. The emissivity, the thermal emissivity of silver, well, it depends on the surface finishing, but it is about 0.05, 5%, 0.05. 0.05 when the maximum is 1.
Okay.
So the maximum everybody can have is 1. And this one here is 0.9.
0.9, so
90%.
0.9, and that's 0.5.
0.05.
0.05, okay.
00.
Okay. So
5%, 90%.
And this is a positive number higher. 100% is all of the heat is irradiated, or
the maximum possible for that temperature, not all of the heat.
Okay.
The maximum is like a black body is called. Is the maximum you can radiate. Just take as a reference. 1 is the maximum that you can have for every body, every material on Earth. This is 90%. This is 5%. Okay, let's make a summary table how the three properties actually change between the two materials. So we mentioned the thermal conductivity, the thermal capacity, and the thermal emissivity. So in the case of the thermal conductivity, the silver is more conductive by a factor of 100 to 1,000.
Okay, yeah.
Is way more conductive. That's the reason why this is almost cold. This is almost cold. And this is still hot. Because somehow we fill it up with water here and not till the very top. So the heat here is conducted much way better to the top. So it's very homogeneous temperature. While when you put water, hot water up to here in the Yixing, this top remains relatively cool. Yeah. And then we have another property, is the capacity. So how much the heat is retained. And here we have about a factor 4, meaning that an Yixing teapot is 4 times lower capacity, heat capacity, lower.
The silver is the lower capacity.
So much higher conductivity, 100,000 times higher, but 4 times lower capacity. So retain less the heat
so
for the same weight.
Less heat will go in, but it will go out, if you will, quicker.
Yeah.
Or it will also go into the material quicker and go out quicker.
You warm it up quicker and you cool it down quicker.
Okay.
The last property is the emissivity. The emissivity of silver is 20 times lower.
That's interesting. So I would have thought the other way, because it was kind of conductance, and I think of metals as, glowing essentially a lot quicker in that regard.
Yeah. It's just about the surface. The thermal emissivity is just a property of the surface.
Okay. So the Yixing will conduct to air, to touching surfaces more slowly, but it will radiate the heat with infrared light a lot quicker.
Yeah. So you see that it's a complex matter, because some aspects are going one direction, some properties, and some other going the other. But I will try to make some clarity about how to interpret that soon. Okay. So let's have another brief sip of this. Then we go for a longer steep now. We don't want now to to do 1,000 steeping. We want to do maybe one more longer, so we get more out.
Yeah.
And we have a clearer comparison between the two.
This is a little bit of a lighter steep, I would say. Fengqing can also be quite bold and also in a chocolatey direction.
Definitely, yeah.
But it seems one can already see the differences. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised at
that is so
level.
clear.
Yeah. So clear.
Yeah. All in all, I have to say, for this particular tea, I prefer the silver.
Okay,
and the reason is the aromatics.
Yeah. Breathing out, you really get that rose note kind of all the way up. I don't know. I mean, I like both, to be honest. I like both aspects, a little bit of the nice viscous mouthfeel, but then, I guess if you really want, what's special about this tea is that...
That's the point, right? Because that viscous feeling is not something you're searching in a Fengqing Honcha. Fengqing Honcha is this bouquet.
Yeah.
And you want that fragrance. You want it very clear and crisp in your mouth. And here is more mixed up and homogeneous and softer and balanced. And here is more crisp. That's ready. So
yes.
I start and then you go.
Okay, 1, 2, and.
Okay, so let's speak briefly one property at a time. Let's speak about conductivity. So we say that this conduces heat much better. What does that mean? It means that when you put water inside, and you wait a little bit, you may have that maybe the top part of the water here in this pot is a bit cooler maybe, or is a bit hotter inside. The teapot could have a certain temperature gradient, if you want, from the bottom to the top. Yeah, because the pot itself is conducing almost as good as the water inside, so it doesn't help much in distributing the temperature. So if, for example, you put the pot on a cold plate, for example, or on a table, then the bottom would cool down, and you would have the bottom layer, where all the leaves maybe are, cooler than the top. With the silver, that doesn't happen, because the silver conduces heat so well that every point of this surface is more or less at the same temperature, and inside there is water. So the water inside the silver teapot has a very constant temperature. Now, does that help? Does it not help? Who knows? The fact that here there is also a different gradient, it could be that it might help creating also convection inside, different temperature, and so water start moving. So it's a complex matter. But here you certainly have a more homogeneous temperature of the water inside. That's the difference,
I suppose also we could talk about sometimes Yixing, if you're brewing a tea that prefers, so to speak, a hot temperature, does better with a hot temperature. You often want to warm up the Yixing. It's often done ahead of time, whereas for silver, it's probably a little bit not
That's
so
about
necessary.
the capacity, though, not about the conductivity. Because, so let's speak about that. So that's true, that's a point, but that's about the capacity. So let's speak about the capacity now. We say that Yixing has 4 times higher capacity. What does that mean? It means that if we put, we take 100 degrees water, we fill it in,
Or you pour it over the top also as a way of
just
warming.
let's say we fill it in.
Okay.
Completely up and completely up. What will happen is that this water will have a colder temperature because
More sort of absorbed.
more water is actually required to bring up the temperature of the pot, so the water inside cool down. So these, just the first tip. Initially the pot were cold. You pour water at 100 degrees. Maybe here you have 95 and here you have 90. Okay? Then once this is hot, once it is brought up at temperature, then it will retain that heat longer. So once it is at 100 degrees, maybe you've done 2-3 steepings at 100 degrees, and then you make a break for 10 minutes. When you come back, this will be at a higher temperature.
Right.
Because it takes more time to release the heat.
So presumably with these first two principles, here we get the sharper kind of arc up and down, and here it's sort of, it's a bit of a slower,
Yeah,
longer
here is
one.
lower. It takes longer to warm it up and longer to cool it down. So this is in principle when we assume that all the other properties are the same. Okay? And I will tell you in a second more how the emissivity can influence that. But let's first have, and I'll try now, let's start with the same. Start with the right one, with the Yixing.
Okay. Wow, still,
Thinner.
yeah, still this the same difference is present.
Yeah.
Clearer, thinner kind of body. Here, more viscous, more of the dark notes. Here, more of the aromas.
Yeah, so that difference is still there. Yeah, so it really depends also a lot what tea you are brewing. So I'm interested with the Sheng later on, because with the Sheng is no more so aromatic, and maybe we're more interested in those texture and mouth feeling. 2006, so it's already fairly old. How much is that? 16 years old? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
16 years old, so it's already a little bit of age in there. So what we have to do to switch is to clean up this pot and to wait 4 grams of that one. So maybe Dimitri, while you do that, I'll explain a little bit about the emissivity story. So I'll give you these to empty the leaves of the silver.
Yes.
And so we said before that...
Scale, sorry.
Yes. We said before that the capacity of the Yixing is higher. So it tends to takes more time to warm up, and once it's warm, it takes more time to cool down. Now, nonetheless, there are a few aspects that influences this. First of all, look at this. We are using a saucer that is, how would you describe this? There is a lot of air and there is a lot...
kind of spongy, effectively.
Sponge,
it's a
like a
loofah.
sponge. Yeah, it's
Really,
a louver.
yeah.
So kind of a sponge that is very well insulating. So the pot are not really in contact with the tray. So the bottom of the pot is very well insulated. It means that there is not a lot of heat that goes from the bottom of the pot down into the table. Now, we cannot influence much the convection here of the air around. Let's assume that that doesn't play a big role. And all the rest is just dissipated by radiation because of that emissivity. So let's pretend that the two pots are very well insulated, like using this sponge from the bottom. And then what will happen is that this Yixing will irradiate 20 times more than silver pot.
Okay.
So although it has higher capacity 4 times, it loses heat by radiation 20 times higher,
Yeah.
faster, 20 times faster. So this effect may well compensate
For the conductivity.
for the higher capacity.
For the higher capacity.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, you have four times higher capacity. So you have 4 times more heat that is retained in the pot. But then you emanate that heat at a rate that is 20 times higher than the silver.
Does the emissivity also, is that a sort of a percentage of the heat, that, like whatever the concentration of heat per material that gets emitted?
No, it's just depending on the body surface.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Just on the
So as
surface
long as
area.
the surface is similar,
Okay.
and you know they are not. Oh no, we have to empty these instead.
Yes.
There are not too much differences. So what I want to say here is that let's pretend that these pots are very well insulated. Let's pretend they are in vacuum, so there is no air convection, and the
Right.
only way the pot have to lose heat is through radiation. This what would bring is that even though the heat capacity of this pot is actually higher, it actually would lose heat much faster than the silver pot. So at the end, overall, your silver pot will retain heat longer. And longer by a factor of 5. So not a little, 20 divided by 4. So say that we have not only radiation, we have also conduction. So what will happen is that if on the contrary, instead of using a sponge and so on, we have maybe a lot of convection in the air, and in addition to that, we put the pot, which has a flat bottom, directly on the table, and maybe it is a metal table that conducts it very well,
Right.
then you would have that
extreme.
radiation doesn't play a big role anymore, but that heat is lost by conduction, yeah, transfer through the body of the table, from the body of the teapot. So in that case, the Yixing teapot might retain better the heat because the higher emissivity of the teapot that is not so much of importance because you don't need to radiate that much, you actually conduct a lot. And the conduction between the two is similar. I mean, the silver, even his body conduct more, and then the contact between the two bodies is more or less the same, they're just flat on flat. So you would lose heat from the silver teapot much faster. It has already a lower capacity, so you would lose heat faster. So you see, it's a very complex matter. You have on one side, oh, that's really full, yeah.
It is quite full, yes. Actually,
Well, we don't
rinse out.
rinse the Sheng, and we just
Okay.
we
I need
just
to rinse out
yeah.
a little bit of there's some of the leaves that stick in, and I'm afraid I have to use
Ah,
my
I see.
fingers
Yeah,
rather.
yeah. Oh wait, let's do like that.
Okay. It also makes me think. I mean, if if the emissivity of the Yixing is higher, that and that really
Lower.
is
Oh no, higher.
higher,
Yeah.
and that's mostly a factor of surface area. That actually the ornateness of the pot might make more of a difference in this case. You know, with some shapes have a
Yeah, the shape.
proportion.
Yeah,
Not a
if you have
lot,
more
perhaps,
surface, you know, a sphere is the body which has
the lowest surface
yeah,
area per volume.
right. So depending on the shape and on the size, that can influence. But here we have very similar shapes and similar size.
Yes.
It's not a big difference. So we try to keep things similar.
That's good.
We have to go. Yeah, well, we don't have because we go with this one.
We're gonna swap it out. Good point.
So we do like that.
This
So
pot's a little bit bigger.
yeah,
more volume.
120 milliliter, 140. That's, you know,
But also not crazy.
with the differences that we have seen in the conductivity, in the capacity, 4 times, 100 times, 20 times emissivity, these 20% difference
Yes.
is not a big thing. So okay, that's really full.
It's quite full. Should I go?
Yeah, maybe
empty
go
it,
and empty
perhaps?
it. Maybe go empty it.
So here we're gonna have a very kind of peripatetic session. You know, a
Yeah,
little
we
bit in
will,
and
we
out.
will. And then, yeah, we are cleaning up because we really want to look together also at the Sheng and see how that makes a difference. I want to do just a short summary about this capacity story, so because it's a more complex. So we have mentioned 3 aspects: capacity, radiation, and conduction through the table. So you see that these 3 are interrelated, and depending whether the pot is well insulated or not from the table, it can really play a big difference in which of the 2 wins. Which of the 2 wins means if you put 100 degrees water, 100 degrees water, and you do a brewing, then you do again few seconds later 100 degrees and 100 degrees, and you brewing. At the end, the 2 pots will have almost the same temperature, very high, closer to 100 degrees. Then you leave them for a little while because you have a chat. Which one cools down faster? So which one retain heat less good, less well? And it's difficult to say. If the pot are very well insulated, like this case, I would bet that the silver wins, retains the heat better. Okay. And we have seen that also before, after a little while, when I touched them, this was actually still warmer than the other one. But if they are in contact directly with the table, then my bet is the Yixing win. Although if they are directly in contact with the table, they would both lose heat relatively quickly. And said that, we go on and we boil some water, we pour our Sheng Pu'er in, and then we are back with you. So we are back, we have cleaned up everything, we had our 2 Sheng, so let's go for it. 16 years old Sheng Pu'er from the Shanghai Tea Factory. Here we go. And the pots in the meantime are cool, both. Touch them, this is cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can tell if you take this is slightly warmer than my hand, and this is maybe cooler than my hand.
Or is it just giving off more, this one also giving off more because of the conductivity?
Yeah, yeah, if you wait long, but as soon as you touch it, it feels warmer.
Yeah.
And this is definitely cooler than my hand, so it's cooler than 36 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, I see.
And this is warmer.
Let's be warmer,
So
right.
this is maybe 40 and this is maybe 25 or so. We cannot measure, but it's just a feeling. So I would say that when I said in this setup, well insulated, my feeling is that this pot retains better heat. But if we put them in contact with the table, then we would see a different story.
Okay. So we'll see after, we'll see afterwards how they fare.
Yeah, we can compare.
Wash.
Yeah, let's give it a wash. I put a little bit less here so that we have more or less the same quantity.
You see yours poured out a little bit of water. Yours sort of sprayed out a little bit of water after a moment with the...
Oh, the smell is completely different now. Yeah, it's a different story, of course.
Yeah.
It's incredible how quickly actually we react to smell, right? You start pouring in the pitcher and already the air is full of...
Yeah. I just heard, I think that the human capacity is 1 part pour. Maybe we can also rinse out, use that to rinse out
we can do that.
Pots to switch over the aromas. That the human capacity for smell is something on the order of 1 part per billion, which I didn't
So we are the sensitivity basically.
Yeah.
Wow. So you don't need a lot of atoms in the air a molecule, yeah. All right. So let's get started. Now, warm, but you see I can keep it for... Try. Here you can keep, I think 1, 2, 3, here is impossible.
Like 1 end, kind of, and it's already...
Yeah. This is mainly because of is metal, because of the conductivity, so it is conducted to your hands much faster. Yeah?
Right, yeah.
All right, so... Right. Yeah, let's see what to expect here.
Shall we do a brief steep or a longer one to try and...
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a shorter first, and then I will pour water right after, so that the second one is longer.
Okay, sounds good.
That's... okay, I'll slowly start. I'm happy because it pours really well, this pot. Very clean.
It's also pretty quick too. I mean, if you compare to these ones, these don't have a super quick pour.
Yeah, so, and it has a tiny hole, but yeah, that's all. Yeah, okay.
I would guess no more than around 5 seconds, something like that.
And of course, the lid of metal doesn't fit as good as in an Yixing. It has a little bit of play. That's normal. You don't have that level of ability. Yeah, here it feels a little bit better actually. But that's normal for silver teapots. Yeah, you have even some vendors that put a disclaimer and say, "I don't want any pot bat because of the movement of the lid." So, yeah. So let's see the color. Somewhat similar, although this is a bit muddy.
It's a bit also dark, or yeah, maybe it's just that.
I don't know. Maybe keep this one here. this in, but you know, there's also different lightning,
Yeah.
so difficult to say. So I put these on my left and on your left cup.
Okay.
And again, I'll start with the Yixing this time.
Take a look.
Yixing.
Yixing, yeah.
Oh, I did. I wanted to pour already.
All right. There's a very nice smell, like incense and dark wood, kind of like. It's very nice.
Incense and dark wood.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Like a room, you know, when you're in like an old wood room. But this is already different. This is, I get more honey out of this. So that's good.
You point out one aspect. So, you know, guys, that a guy when he's glazed, so like glass doesn't affect the taste of the tea inside,
Right.
Because it's not only about thermal properties, the differences. An Yixing teapot is not glazed. It is at open pores, so it would affect the taste of the tea. It says it makes it more mellower, rounded up, add minerality to the tea, and so on and so
Right,
forth.
and some of the clay and previously leach out then with previous ones. And this one isn't been used for so long, under a year, but already it has a little bit of that effect, and they're not less of the sort of raw clay when the first time you use it is a little bit. There's less of that here. Whereas, and I haven't washed it out, so I've just mostly rinse it out. Whereas here, this is also completely new and hasn't been used.
Yeah, it's completely new, but that's not a big problem because this is not glazed, but silver would develop quickly an oxidation, a patina, it's an oxidation layer, and that is protecting the silver, and is not porous. As a metal, is not porous. It doesn't interact as much with the liquid as an Yixing teapot, but nonetheless, I believe that it may influence it a little bit.
There is this talk about just the silver, and they talk about that the interaction of the silver ions and some of them dissolving into water.
Yeah, that was the way of keeping liquid safe in the past, right?
Right, yes.
So
silver works as a mild
antibacterial, and so it has certainly a certain level of interaction with the liquid. You have also the feeling that when you drink water outside of a metallic bottle, it may taste a little bit clean metallic, yeah, and so you may have an interaction, way less than in an Yixing, but certainly not completely neutral like glass or Gaiwan.
Right.
Nonetheless, my bet here was that teapots made out of silver are used with different types of tea. That is not a big issue. I asked the producer a few days ago and confirmed that.
Okay.
Actually, I even didn't tell him my belief. I asked, can you use, what do you do guys in China? Do you use silver teapot with different teas, or like for Yixing teapot you pick up one? And his answer was straight, you can use it with all different teas.
Okay. Which is a nice advantage, especially if you've invested in the silver pot. That's
It is, yeah. And on top of that, it has also nonetheless you have to pay a little bit of attention because it from metals you may stain it, so you may create some stains on the inside if you leave the tea overnight, so it doesn't go into the body.
Yes.
Yeah, but on the surface it would affect the color. So nonetheless, it's better to clean the pot fairly quickly and don't leave it overnight. I go in the opposite direction now. I start something that I really suggest when you do simultaneous tasting, go in one direction and then the other.
So I'm inclined to sort of say there's the same difference here, the same kind of.
But you say I am inclined, and this point already out that the difference is not as clear as before.
Perhaps a little bit subtler.
Because before, when we both drank, we kind of had the impulse of saying, okay, there is a difference, it's clear. Yeah, and now it's somewhat hard. So I will go. We have here the second steep, very long. We go now for another blind test, because my
blind,
bet
okay.
is that it's very hard to tell them apart blind.
So how
So
are
we
we
will
gonna,
find that out.
How are we going to?
I'll just pour it in.
Okay.
And I don't tell you what I put in what.
Okay. Shall I?
Yeah, well, not for now, because first of all we have to pour it out. And now we can do, since we have left it there for a while and the two pots were already warm, we can see which one is hotter, yeah, or which feels hotter. Of course, metal hot conduct it much faster,
Right.
so it's difficult to tell just if they're both very hot just by touching it. But certainly when they are above and below the temperature of your hand, then you can tell.
True. Yes. The other one was colder before.
They are both hot now. All right. So I pour in mine. I put in the left these, and in the right. Oh, sorry, I do that.
Okay.
And in the right this one here, and then I don't tell you what I do with yours.
Okay. So.
Okay. So this is the Yixing, and then this is the metal one. Okay, so we can get started, and I'll start with this. You choose which one you want. Very strong taste.
This is a real power steep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting like honey, very, very bitter.
Yes, I wanted to say you get honey, but on top of, behind a lot of bitterness.
Bitter honey, and like if you're just biting into a piece of wood, kind of.
Yeah.
Smoother gradient. Strange. Slightly, maybe.
I don't know for what I'm tasting here, but of course you don't know if you're tasting the same as mine. I know. In my case, well, I will get you started actually.
Oh, okay.
Compare the two, the first one and the second.
I'm kind of say you're right that it's a lot subtler. I mean, I think
which one is subtler? The second? It's kind of difficult, yeah. Ja, wir filmen. Ja, komm mal rein. So, Henning just arrived, and we are doing an interesting comparison, Henning. We are comparing Yixing and silver teapots. Yeah, that's yeah. Just we are almost done. Just give us a second, and we are with you. So,
I think you're right.
So okay,
basically.
let's make it simple. Which one is which?
Okay, I think you're right that the difference is much subtler. I think if we didn't do it as long, it would be a little less subtle still, even with the second steep.
But you remember when we did the long steep for the previous one, it was still clear?
It was still clear, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of the Sheng Pu'er long steep versus black tea long steep is also different.
It's different, yeah.
Here, I feel like I can detect a slight difference in here, but it's a bit difficult to assign it. I mean, maybe ever so slightly more.
You have to make your call.
Okay,
which
make my call.
Which? So let's put it this way: did I swap them or not? It's always fun to do blind tasting when you're not the one blind tasting.
All right, I'm not sure. I'm inclined to say that this is slightly more distinct and clear, so I'm gonna assign it to the silver. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. But very, very subtle.
Of course, it's also 50-50, but yeah, Dimitri got it right. I swapped it. So, and now you swap them, I think.
I did just swap them back. So
anyway, so I say the difference is so. So let's summarize this. Long video, so you want all the detail about the thermal and so on, you have to go back and rewatch the beginning. I'm not going to make a summary for that. We said that it's not only about thermal properties, it's also how the material itself interact with the fluid.
Right.
Yeah, more here than here, but still more here than in a Gaiwan. So I would put Gaiwan, silver, Yixing. In the amount of interaction that the material had with the soup, with the liquor, with the brew. And then we had a very clear distinction in taste between when we were drinking an aromatic tea.
Yes.
In the silver, it was much more crispier and clean than in an Yixing. But when we swap to
Sheng Pu'er, yeah.
the difference was much smaller. So we couldn't really say that the Yixing gives so much more minerality and make it so much smoother. Then it is a clear difference.
It had a little bit of effect in the first
a little bit.
brief infusion, but yeah, less of a distinct difference there.
Yeah.
And a long brew also seems here to get out that kind of the soupy, the thick texture.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's also possible. It's really very nice. These silver pots, and also like the artistry that goes into them is at least on the level of the Yixing. I mean,
even more work.
These are hammered teapots by hand, so they have a sort of molten. They bang out, flatten a sheet of metal, and carefully, painstakingly bend with many little hammer taps into this shape.
It's
and
crazy.
Cut
really
it,
crazy.
and it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Dimitri, thanks a lot for this. It was, I think, very interesting for us.
It was really fascinating, and I think it would be neat to also do even more. And now I want to know the kind of.
We have to do more experiments and maybe with some temperature measurements and so on. Yeah. Well, we will see. Anyway, I hope, guys, that you have enjoyed this very long video about the difference between an Yixing teapot and a silver teapot. And I hope to see you next week in the next video. Bye, guys.